Hello, everybody. This is Lord Scoldren here. And this is kind of a different thing for Scoldren's Retro Warriors. We usually talk about retro themes, retro games, retro movies, stuff from the 80s and 70s and all. Today we're doing a rare thing. We're doing a review of Star Wars Rogue One, which is kind of retro if you think about it. It fits between episodes 3 and 4. So you were kind of going a little bit back in time. But before we even go through that, let me introduce my Retro Warrior partner here, Rick Head. Rick, thanks for showing up and being part of this group.
Well, you know what's a pleasure, Joe. You and I, we've done a couple of reviews before this, and the movie that we're talking about is Rogue One, which I just saw. I'm going to be honest with you. When I first saw the advertisement, I'm like, really? You guys got to be kidding me. You know, they had episode 1, 2, and 3. Really, I didn't care for it, but Rogue One truly was an exception to the rule.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of did enjoy some of the prequels. I did not like the musical Jar Jar Binks. I kind of looked away from that, but the storyline was good because it built up to what we know. If you followed the chronology of Star Wars from Episode 1, 2, then you go to the Clone Wars series, then you go to Episode 3. And then finally, you kind of look for Star Wars Rebels. That's another animated series. If you watch all that, then go into Rogue One, things start falling into place. You start seeing the evolution of Darth Vader, and then you go into the regular movies, which is I call the original trilogies, which is Episode 4, 5, and 6, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. That, Rick, I gotta say, Rogue One was phenomenal. It fit into the chronology well. Normally, with you know me, I'm a critic when it comes to today's directors and actors, how they always tweak things or they change something. Rogue One stood to the proper trilogy, the way it was done, and I think, to me, in my opinion, was a great movie.
No, I have to agree with you because when I realized it was more of a war movie, and it fits so well into episode 4, 5, and 6 more than the the prequels. To me, I consider this more of a prequel because the first three they were more like the birth of Darth Vader, where did Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Clone Wars. But this really shows you, and for those of you, I want to really give a quick synopsis. The story is based around the Death Star and the design of the Death Star. Now, there was a person who was pretty much detached from everything, and they said, "Look, we're gonna have you design this thing. You're a great designer. You have to design the Death Star." And what he said, that little flaw that they talked about in episode 4, he created the flaw. And somehow, again, this is where the rebels fought to steal the outline or the imagery of the Death Star itself. These were the questions of episode 4. Where they all come from? Well, we'll just assume they were stolen. They didn't really say how the Death Star was built or why we just knew that it was built and that it was a strong military. And this is really showing you the birth of the rebels, what the rebels were all about, and really how they encapsulated episodes 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, before we go into anything further, spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen the movie, then you might as well just turn this off. I'll do a non-spoiler review later, but this is pure spoilers. And it's really, if you look at it, it's not really spoilers because everything that happens in this movie already transcends to episode 4. So pretty much what we're going to be discussing is the questions that have always been: how did the rebels get the Death Star plans? How did how did Princess Leia get it? Everybody is wondering, how did this start? And Rogue One really answers all those questions. And also, it was a very good war movie. Rick, I take it to possibly almost like in my experience from old movies, and fans who are into old war movies will probably know, this was pretty much a Dirty Dozen. This was kind of like The Great Escape. This was a group of people put together, your non-military transition guys, except for Captain Cassium, but everybody else was just misfits in their own way, and they got together to make a group.
I absolutely agree with you. And again, one thing that you did mention when you mentioned about Princess Leia, they have this new technology where they're able to put an actor and they can overlay that person. Princess Leia looked very young, almost as she did 40 years ago. Of course, rest in peace to Carrie Fisher, who passed away recently. Her mother actually passed away 24 hours after the fact, so I want to give them some notification. Of course, rest in peace and the respects to the friends and family of the Fisher fans. The Fisher family, shall I say, excuse me. But and that's some really new technology. I think the first time I really saw it was at Marvel Civil Wars, but that's off the subject. So it looks like we're gonna be seeing that a lot more often in a lot more movies.
Actually, the the skill that they did with the CGI transformation actually happened in Tron Legacy. For you fans that haven't seen, if you're familiar with the 1984 Tron, it's basically I can't remember his name. He's a good actor, but Kevin Flynn was the character. He created Tron, the video, the kind of the world, and in Tron Legacy, Kevin Flynn is old, but they took his face from the '80s movie and put it on a new actor. So you could say his nemesis was a young him who was a computer. That's where the technology started. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good for the time. Now you look at a couple of years later, oh, they had Grand Moff Tarkin. They had Princess Leia. So here's Peter Cushings, who portrayed Grand Moff Tarkin, died some time ago, and they captured his appearance down to even down to his voice. The actor who portrayed him was the right build, the right voice, and he walked around with that look, and to me it sold well. I really enjoyed it.
What I really enjoyed most about Rogue One is if you look at the prequels, they have all this high super technology. When you go to episode 4, 5, and 6, it was very, very rural. Before, with the exception, of course, the with the military, or should I don't mind me, guys. It's one of those nights where my brain is not functioning. With the Empire, that's what I was looking for. Which they had the high technology. Everybody else just kind of really didn't have all those skills. And when you see it, you see, Yoda, who's walking around a cane, all of a sudden he's around flipping around and flying around. And it's like, so why do you need the cane? This, in Rogue Warriors, they actually had a very similar technology before with the New Hope. It actually really transcended very, very well. Overall score, I have to give it a 9 out of 10.
You know what? I gotta actually give it a 9.5. I would have loved to see more Darth Vader in it, but for what we got to see with Darth Vader, I mean, this was Vader, the way we wanted to see him. Laser, his, lightsaber slashing, force using badass that we're supposed to see. By the New Hope, which is episode 4, he's kind of slowing down a bit, and then he starts getting back into shape. You could say by Return of the Jedi. But here we see really an angry, focusing Vader, Anakin Skywalker Vader, who's trying to get in good with the Emperor, who's trying to really break away from his Anakin Skywalker self.
I'd like to disagree with you because from what that appears to me is years later. After he's become, the number one of the Empire, number one aside from the Empire. He was the man in control. By then, I think by this time, because keep in mind, when the Anakin became Darth Vader, his children were still very young. This movie, literally, the movie ends right where A New Hope begins. They changed it around a little bit, but the concept is the exact same. You watch, if you put that next to Episode 4, it's like perfect. It's flawless.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, I really say this I wasn't a fan of Force Awakens. I really wasn't into that. Rogue One changed my feelings for it. I'm like, wow, they're doing better Star Wars movies. They learned their mistakes from Force Awakens. Now they're getting it a little bit more serious, and now you're seeing these other characters, and then you're seeing the cameos from the classic people. Again, you pretty much it's worth the watch. And Rick, there's nothing more really we can say. We can keep going on. Darth Vader, badass. The team with Jan Ors, spot on. The transition from Episode 3 to Rogue One to Episode 4. If you just pop in Star Wars Episode 4 or New Hope, that movie takes exactly right after that Rogue One. So it's like it doesn't skip a beat. We don't wait years later. No, Vader gets back in his Star Destroyer and he's chasing the princess. That's how good the transition is. Rogue One, a very good movie. Rick, you can get the final say in.
And like I said before, I think we said it all. A great movie. For Star Wars fans who was let down from Episode 7, give Rogue One a shot. I'm going to tell you, you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Absolutely. Rick, you know what? We're going to close up this session right now. But Rick, why don't you tell everybody what you do and where they can find you?
Well, as you know, Joe, I do this with you on a part-time basis, but I am a full-time wrestling fan. You can we do hardcore wrestling radio, we do podcasts, but right now we've more transcended back, and we took a few steps back, and we are now just covering news. We write blogs. It's all kinds of stuff like that, and that's over in the group section of Facebook under the name HWR Chat Room. It's a no-holds-barred chat room where you can say what you want, how you want to say it when it comes to wrestling. And you can, of course, subscribe to us over at youtube.com/HWR Show.
Thank you, Rick. And again, fans can follow me on Facebook. It's Skoldron's Retro Warriors. You can look that up. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's @Skoldron. And I think with that, we're going to call it a night. What we're going to do next Saturday, I'm going to do my first gaming reviews under Skoldron's Retro Warriors. And I'm going to go to the old, you could say, Mega Man series from the NES going up to the SNES. So there's plenty of games to cover. So fans, tune in, keep checking on us. You can check on Rick on HWR Show over on Facebook as well. So this is Lord Skoldron saying, I find your lack of pants disturbing.